Welcome to another episode of What the Media Want. I'm your host, Nikki Snell, founder of Loft, and in each episode I chat with leading journalists, bloggers and content creators to help PRs understand what they're looking for, from the stories they cover to how to pitch to them more effectively. And in this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Aditi Sharma. So Aditi is a London-based design journalist and content strategist with over 12 years of experience. She writes about art, interiors and design for an incredible list of publications, including Architectural Digest, Elle Decoration, Livingetc, the Financial Times, the Telegraph and Design Anthology. And Aditi was previously the digital editor at Architectural Digest, and she is now a full-time freelance writer and editor. So welcome, Aditi. It's so lovely to have you on.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on your show.
You're very welcome. So just to start, do you want to give us a quick summary of how you first started out in your career?
Sure. Well, I started as an intern at a newspaper in India, and then I was just lucky enough to convert that into a job. It was basically a supplement on architecture and interiors, and I really learned the ropes at the job. And then everything just snowballed into a full-fledged design career. And then I moved to Elle Decoration and then AD and House. And then about 5 years ago, I moved to the UK where I worked at Livingetc. And then, that's what I've been up to in the last more than 12 years. Design really is my calling and passion. And if I live long enough, then another 100 years in the same field.
Lovely. And so what is it exactly that you do now?
So now I'm actually a freelancer. I switched to a freelance role about 8 months ago, and I write everything lifestyle, which includes architecture, interiors, design, travel, art, culture, and I'm writing across different markets. So Asia, Middle East, US, UK, and I'm writing for AD, Elle Decoration, FT, Habitus Living, Design Anthology, just to name a few.
Amazing. And so I know it's going to be quite broad because of the broad type of publications that you write for, but what type of brands do you tend to feature and what kind of products specifically?
Well, because I write for so many different publications and across topics, I write about every brand and every product that's within the gambit of design. I write, about furniture and paints and wallpapers and accessories and literally anything and everything that is within interior design.
Okay. And how do you generally go about sourcing the images that you're going to feature in those articles?
Honestly, I'd say about 70% of my time every day is spent on images and sourcing images, because obviously visuals are very, very important for any design publication and for any design feature. I spend a lot of time on Instagram and Pinterest, and I go to a lot of brand websites. I reach out to designers, write to PRs. I will say that I do spend a lot of time at Loft also. In fact, I feel like that platform has really helped me in a lot of tight situations on tight deadlines. I really appreciate the pictures and the information that's on the website that can just very easily be used just on the article, just last minute. I think it's a great platform. So I think a lot of my time is spent on visuals. And I mean, honestly, I love it. I love browsing through beautiful pictures.
It's so lovely, isn't it? I spend a long time looking on Loft and, like you said, Instagram and all the rest of it. So much good stuff out there. So just generally, what are you working on next that PRs may want to keep an eye on?
It's a big mixed bag of stuff. For now, I can say I'm working on a lot of paint and tile stories. So I think if there's anything new and exciting that any PRs have anything to offer, I'm more than happy to take a look at it.
Great. And just generally, you work across the world. So do you mind where the products come from? Do they need to be in a certain country, international?
I think that's the beauty of working across markets, because every brand and every product is relevant. And honestly, I know a lot of US websites really like to talk about what's happening in the UK. And I know a lot of UK publications write about stuff that's happening in the US. So it's like a great cross-pollination. And I think every brand and every product really works for me. So I'm open to looking at all kinds of pitches.
Amazing. We've seen such a shift in the past, probably 5 years on Loft about the types of brands that journalists want to feature in terms of the location. So obviously the shift with Future PLC to being, so much more American focused and people having a more global audience just with the advent of online, but really with the promotional side of it now for publishers. So it's interesting to hear that from you as well. So going more onto the PR side of things, basically to give the PRs some tips in the audience. So what was the last PR pitch that you said yes to?
Oh gosh, I say yes to almost one PR pitch every once in a day, or at least twice in a day. So it's hard to recall, but I think one that I can think of is there was this really beautiful pitch that came through, but it was for a hotel in the Himalayas. And I sort of pitched it to AD Middle East, and it sort of really worked for them because it was a very beautiful property. And I think kudos to the PR who sent out the pitch, because it was very well worded. And it was a long pitch, but it was, there were sections that were highlighted that you just scroll through and you immediately get a sense of what you need to know. And there was a beautiful selection of images, and they were very quick in sort of reaching out to me, and between me talking to the editor and them, everything just went on really smoothly. So I think, that was a really great pitch, and that's the last, I think I can remember, that was the last pitch I said yes to.
Lovely. So just to condense that, so it was the succinct clarity of the content that you needed to write and pitch the article, the access to the imagery, and beautiful imagery as well. So in terms of the access to the imagery, were the low res in the email itself to scan, or was there a link out to get high res? How was that?
Right. So within the pitch, they had selected 4 or 5 really standout images from the property. So they were very quick to switch. So when you're scrolling, it's very quick to look at the images and know what the property looks like. And there was, of course, a link. And I always prefer when PR send high-res images, just because, when you're sending it to the editors, they want to see the final images. They want to see what it's going to look like on print or on digital. So there was a very nice big folder of all high-res images. And I feel like the more important thing about that pitch was the subject line. And I know that the Himalayas immediately, like the way you looked quite interested immediately when I said that word. So it's sort of like that for when you send a pitch like that to an editor, that the location is very important when you're doing a travel story. So that's sort of a thing that comes into the subject line is great when a PR is pitching it.
Great. I don't think I've spoken to a journalist who didn't say that the subject heading was so critical to success in pitching. So we've got good subject line, beautiful imagery, low res, but linking out to high res, succinct information, and then speed of replying. I think that is the essence of really great PR. So lovely to hear that. So what's the one thing that you think PRs could do better when reaching out to you?
Oh, wow. I feel like all PRs are doing already such a good job at reaching out. I don't think there's anything that I'd say that they should do differently. The only thing that I can think of is, and this is really not their fault at all, is, the question of when is this going live? And I feel like sometimes as a journalist, and I can say this as a freelancer, when I reach out to editors, sometimes they don't tell us the deadline for when the story is going to go live. They just give us like a overview, and they'll say, okay, it's for like a July release or an August release, but they won't tell us the date. So when the PR reaches out to us and they keep asking us, when is this going to go live? I'm not ghosting you. I genuinely don't know. So I think that's the only kind of thing that I feel a lot of PRs feel that the journalists are not sort of answering once they send out all the information. It's just that we're not sure of the timeline.
This episode is supported by Pressloft, helping PR teams to provide their product images and content to journalists the moment they want to feature them. With over 1,000 brands uploading ready-to-use images and press releases, journalists can source imagery and content for their articles as they're writing them, without needing to email PR teams and wait for replies. In fact, 20% of coverage generated via Pressloft happens out of hours when PR teams aren't around to respond. It's a smarter, more journalist-focused way to drive media coverage. Visit pressloft.com to learn more and take a free 60-day trial. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've taught quite a bit about PR over the years, and the one thing I would say is generally don't follow up with when it's been in featured. Ideally, you have your own media monitoring or you do your own manual research to just ease the weight off that journalist having to reply. So
just feel like as a journalist, the only one thing that I do definitely make a note of is that the moment the feature goes live, that I always send it to the PR and the designer, and I feel like it's really helped me seal my relationship with the PRs and the designers and architects much more, just because it's a two-way street. I mean, if they're providing you information, you have to sort of provide them with the live link so that they can take a look at the feature.
Well, that's quite rare, I must say. In my career as a PR journalist, actually sending that link over is rare, but extremely welcomed when it's done. So very nice of you. Generally, and again, this might be a bit tricky to answer, but is there a generic sort of lead time that you might consider in your freelance career?
So I write for both digital and print. So for digital, it's always a much tighter deadline. It's much faster. Print is much slower. So for digital, I'd say about 2 weeks is the lead time that I give to my PRs and designers. And for print, it'll be about 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But yeah, so for print, it takes a while. There's always a little bit of wiggle room. Yeah, but I feel like PRs usually do a very good job at getting back in within deadline, sometimes even before. So I really feel like I don't think I've ever had an issue with deadlines with PRs.
Great. So you mean your deadline is 2 to 3 weeks from the time that you've messaged them. So in terms of when that would go into prints, that's about 3 months ahead, typically, is it with print, roughly? Great. And then is there a day of the week where you're like, oh, please don't pitch to me. I'm generally rammed or I'm not working?
As a freelancer, I'd say there's no day that's bad. When I was in-house, I feel like where Mondays were usually the time when I was really not looking at new fresh pitches, because you're sort of like looking at what happened over the weekend and planning for the week ahead. As a staff writer, I would say Tuesdays and Thursdays were a great time to get pitches, because Tuesdays when you really start working on what stories you're going to work on next and commissioning. As a freelancer, I'd say there's no bad day, no bad time. Send me whatever you have whenever. I'm always looking at my emails.
Brilliant. Great tips there. So is there a time of year that you're generally looking for content at all?
Yes, I'd say the months that have a lot of bank holidays are the time when I'm looking for maximum pitches, because that's the time when editors are sort of looking to fill in those content gaps and they want more and more pitches. So I'd say like May or August or December is a great time to send as many pitches as you can. And even for editors, I know this for a fact that bank holidays is the time when they're looking for more ideas to come their way.
Amazing. I have never heard that before. So that's a great tip there. Christmas, is it something that you cover at all?
I do. And I feel like we're in July right now. July onwards is when people start sending Christmas ideas and gifting ideas. And I know that editors start working to create a bank for the holidays very early on. August, September is the time when they really start working on the gifting stories and the shopping stories and stuff like that. So yeah.
Great. And so you're open to those kind of gifting pitches.
Absolutely, yes.
Any particular type of product that you can see that you might be writing about, or segment for a gift guide?
I feel like for gift guides, it's usually stuff that's very affordable, but from like a good brand. So I know like table lamps are great accessories, say plants, wall decor, stuff like that. That's very easy to buy and easy to gift. Those make for great products for shopping stories.
Perfect. So very much interiors focused, good value products that are easy to get hold of. Excellent. And then in terms of what kind of imagery you prefer from PRs, is there a preference, cutout, lifestyle, both?
I can't say for other journalists, but for me, it's always been lifestyle imagery. And I know that publications prefer pictures that are less pressy, if you know what I mean. They're not too cosmetic. They're not too staged. They prefer pictures that are very warm and, in settings that are very lived in. I always tell a lot of PRs that if you have any designer who's used your product in a real project, then it would be great if you can send that image, because it adds more credibility to the product and to the image. And then you sort of get like sort of insights from the brand and from the designer who's actually used your product. So yeah, those kind of images work the best.
Great. And would you want a quote from the designer in that instance as well?
I think it works both ways, whether a designer or a brand. And if both, then nothing like it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any other formats? So JPEG or PNG preference? Any specific size?
For digital, they prefer JPEGs. But for print, I think they prefer TIFF files because they're just higher res and they're clearer.
Okay. And any images which you just look at and go, no, can't deal with that, don't like it. So we give our PRs a tip of what not to do with their imagery.
I feel like images that have the product really front and center, that they're sort of like really pushing that this is the product in the lifestyle imagery. I think that's what I meant by when I said too pressy. I think images that look really well fit in within an interior scheme, say if it's like a table or a lamp or a plant, which is really fitting into, say, a living room or a bedroom. I think that kind of images really work. Other than that, I feel like they just look too staged and too, not real.
Like an advert rather than something actual, contextual and in real life. Yep. Okay. And without naming names, have you got some PR pet hates that you could share?
Oh gosh. I don't really think so. I don't think I have, in all these years, I don't think I've ever had a bad experience with a PR or something that's really ticked me off. Not really, no.
So nice to hear. And generally, do you like receiving press releases?
I do. I really, really appreciate it. And I don't know, again, I can't say for other journalists, but I really like big chunky press releases that have a lot of information on them, because it's easier for me to pick out the stuff that I know that'll work for different publications. One press release could actually help me pitch to 3 different publications, depending on the information they've provided. So I really like a lot of text on it, a lot of information, a lot of pictures, high resolution images. So yeah, I'm always open to looking at a lot of press releases.
Interesting. So in the detail, are there any specific things that you really value seeing in there?
Yeah, so if the material of the product, the price range, who designed it, what kind of interiors do they think that the product would fit really well into, what sort of theme that they think the product would fit very well into. I feel like that sort of information really works. And if there's any information of where the product has already been used, say in a project by an architect or designer, that's a great information too. Yeah, that sort of thing.
And just to get really detailed on the imagery, you mentioned high res. So different journalists seem to like different things with high res. Is it low res in the email, but then linking out to a folder of high res images?
I prefer a Dropbox link.
Yeah.
I would say WeTransfer kind of sort of, usually what happens is if you miss out on that pitch, then you miss out on the WeTransfer link and the link expires. So like a Dropbox link or a Google Share sort of a thing that really works.
The other thing I've heard about WeTransfer is that you can't actually preview the content before you go into it and download it. So there's that precious time is lost clicking and waiting. Okay. And how many press releases do you get a day, roughly?
I'd say about 10 to 12 every day. Yeah. And then some of them are sort of just like product shopping sort of press releases that are just about, these are the new products, these are the products in these color ranges, or these would work for festival time, stuff like that. And some of them are releases on a product launch. And then others are about properties, because I do a lot of house tours also. So a lot of homes, buildings, hotels, stuff like that.
And so you're very open to both product pitches as well as property case study pitches. Yeah. You need both of those. Great. And then in terms of samples, is it something that you get sent a lot of?
I do. Because I'm a design journalist, I end up getting a lot of paint and wallpaper samples and tile samples and stuff like that. I feel like, I love it. I've actually used a lot of wallpaper and fabric samples to just sort of stitch stuff and like make it into like bags or like stuff like that. So it's really useful like that. I put it on my boards and stuff. So it adds a little nice color and a nice touch. There is one, I don't want to name the brand, but they sent me this really beautiful stationery kit, which I received about a year ago. And it had all colors that you can imagine. It was actually a paint brand, but I won't name the brand. But they had every color stationery you can imagine. And I've been using it for more than a year. It's sort of like a part of my personality now. But I really, really appreciate it. I thought that was really, really cool.
That's so nice. That's so kind. That's good PR right there, isn't it? And aside from that lovely stationery set, are there any other memorable ones, maybe quirky or funny?
Yeah, there was one brand that sent me, they were into furnishings, and they sent me a monogrammed cushion, which I now use in my living room. And it's really sweet because it's hand stitched, and and the design was something that they asked me for, and I provided them the monogram that I would like, and they sort of hand stitched it for me. And now it's in my living room. And what's really great is that when people come and visit and they look at that pillow, they ask me where it's from. So every time the brand is sort of like, it's talked about. So I thought that was very clever.
So I'm just going to circle back to a question around the brands and what type of brands you would like to hear from. Were they large or small? Any sector?
Well, every brand and every product works for me because I write across topics and across markets. I will say one thing is that a lot of publications nowadays are very interested in craftsmanship. So if there's any brand that has got any sort of links with studios that have artists or craftsmen sort of making these handmade things, say a chair or a rug, stuff like that, I feel like those kind of pitches are of great interest to me personally, because I'm also very big on craftsmanship. And I know that those kind of stories really work for especially big brands like Elle Decor, AD. They really care about those kind of stories and those kind of products that sort of talk about slow movement and slow design.
And getting those articles can transform a business as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So just finally, outside of work, what is it that you love to do to switch off?
I dog sit, and that's sort of the biggest highlight of my week. I dog sit quite often, and I love the outdoors. So that's the biggest perk of being a freelancer. You can sort of go for a run any time of the day. So I go to the park. I love to cook. I love to bake. So yeah, that's sort of what I spend my time doing other than work.
That's so lovely. I also look after a dog on a Wednesday, and it is one of the highlights of my week too. So yeah, something in common there. So Aditi, that was such a lovely interview. So many useful nuggets of information that the PRs can all learn from to pitch better. So really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on.
So much for inviting me, and it was really lovely chatting to you.
Thanks for listening to What the Media Want. If you found today's episode useful, we'd love it if you subscribed, shared with a colleague, or left us a quick review. This podcast is supported by Pressloft. If you're in PR and want to make it easier for journalists to feature your brand, take a free 60-day trial at pressloft.com.